Whereas Saad Hafez and the local arrangements committee did a fantastic job to ensure that the meeting setting was pleasant and that all of our physical needs were met. And whereas Parwinder Girl provided us with a fantastic scientific program and ensured that all our intellectual needs were met. And whereas this conference has been blessed with the attendance of one of our foundation stones of nematology discipline, Dr. Dewey Rasky, his wife Adeline. And also that John Webster and Virginia Ferris are also here, also honorary members of our society. And whereas all our catered meals were nutritious and most delicious, and whereas the lemon bars, brownies, and fruit breads at each of the breaks were sufficiently rich to induce session-long food comments through each of the subsequent sessions. Saw a lot of heads bobbing in there. And whereas nobody could find a bathroom near the executive boardroom until it was pointed out by Doubletree staff that the bathroom was in the boardroom. And whereas the flushing of the toilet during the board meeting was quite audible. And whereas it became immediately apparent that the number of flushes by a board member in the restroom could be used to indicate their voting preference on certain issues. And whereas the terms number 1 and number 2 could be confusing as to whether it was a reference to a voting preference or an exploratory function, it was resolved that AVI members who tried to vote while going to the bathroom should not constitute a contribution to quorum, nor should their vote count. And whereas the SON submitted a bid to host the next joint IFNS international meetings in Texas, and whereas the other competing countries were China, India, South Africa, and Japan, and whereas the SON delegation, what, Tom? And whereas the SON delegation did not sufficiently woo the International Site Selection Committee with fancy swag bags, chocolates, college scholarships, or box seats to World Cup matches. Whereas it has been deemed that the South African contingent was awarded the bid because they did woo the Site Selection Committee with extremely cute swag bags that included charismatic megafauna such as elephants and giraffes and gorillas and zebras. Whereas we were left to wonder whether a stuffed potato doll could be considered representative of charismatic megafauna. Resolved that our next effort to land a North American location for the international meetings shall include the wooing of the Site Selection Committee with the wildly popular SON emblazoned Gucci bags of the complete with giant plastic vuvuzela in the shape of a helico tilangus. That'll get it. And whereas contenders for the origin of the name of the state of Idaho includes a derelict steamboat and an eccentric Washington lobbyist who have said to have just made it up. I'm not lying. That's where the term Idaho comes from. They just made it up. And whereas a young male graduate student, upon receiving his fashionista-approved SON emblazoned and very effeminately styled Gucci bag, was overheard to say,